Hello, everybody. It is Thursday night, and it is time for your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast. We have no technical difficulties this week. We are back and locked and loaded and ready to go with a full house of folks ready here with you this evening. We got a lot to get into. There's a new title on the horizon for the women in WWE. We're going to take a look at that and ask the big question, who should be first? The WWE ID program is up and running. We got to look into that because people are being named and things are happening. All that and so much more, folks. Get ready. Your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big Old Belt, 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 Big Old Belt. All I really want is that Big Old Belt, 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 Big Old Belt. All I really need that Big Old Belt.
Hello, everybody out there. I am so glad to see you here tonight with a full house. It has been a while that we got the whole crew together tonight. So this is going to be an extra special evening here on your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast. In the top center of the screen, it is me. I am Will. I will go around this clockwise tonight. I think to my left is 2 Chains, our editor-in-chief of Big Gold Belt Media. Below him, the giant crab Jamal. On the bottom right, we got Silly Celis. And across from me on the top right, Damian G down in the Lone Star State. We are also glad to be here with you tonight. Guys, it's been a couple weeks since I've been here, and I hear there's been technical issues. I'm glad to see everybody here tonight. How is everybody doing this evening?
Happy belated birthday, Damian.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Happy birthday. It's good to be right side up.
The big 4-5, baby.
Oh,
nice.
But all is well. All is well.
All is well.
There we go. Should we get right to it? Get right into the thick of things? Let's do it then. All right. So this kind of came out of nowhere. There have actually been rumors that maybe a belt was being made, but it just got dropped by old Nick Aldis this past Friday on SmackDown. So we're going to open things up tonight talking about the latest thing happening in women's wrestling in WWE, which is the announcement of the WWE Women's United States Championship, which I said was unveiled this week by Nick Aldis on SmackDown. And I guess we have a couple things here to lay the table out. This was unveiled on SmackDown and made very clear right away that this is going to be like the tag, like the women's tag. The women's tag titles. Yeah. Same deal as those this is not SmackDown exclusive. This will be company wide. So it will cover both rosters. No talk of an Intercontinental Ladies title yet, but a lot of people were saying maybe that should have happened too. But that's a whole nother topic. But women's U.S. title that is going to be started up sometime soon. I guess maybe this week we'll start having matches or something, or whether they're going to do a tournament or how they're going to decide this. They haven't gone into specifics yet, but they are getting the ball rolling on a women's secondary championship. We already had the North American one in NXT, but the main roster is finally getting some. It'll cover both brands. So exciting times. I guess first, before we get into names, hold off on any names. Everyone's gonna start politicking for who it should be. Hold off on that. Let's get to that second. First, thoughts on just the idea that it's happening, a women's secondary title, women's U.S. champion. I'm gonna go to you 2 James first. Thoughts on them rolling this out?
Let's go ahead and plug the title of tonight's show. About time, because honestly, it has been rumored, and I know we have seen other situations where there's way too many belts, but this was definitely one that was needed. And if there was any proof of the pudding, you take a look down at NXT and you look at what their women's North American championship is doing, and you have folks like Kalani James, who just Kalani Jordan, who is like a household name, and you were able to legitimize her very quickly. And yes, she may not have as much experience as some of the other ladies that she's in that sphere with, but you respect her because that's what a title could do. So I like the idea of they're doing this, but I got to say, beyond the title, when you think about the GM battles between Raw and SmackDown, Nick Aldis is like killing it right now on one side, and poor what's his name, he's taking bumps I mean, he is the most stressed out dude I've ever seen. I mean, like, it's not even close. So I just think it's funny how they're like really telling stories between the GMs. And I think like that alone people are interested in. But my only last thing I'll really say, I think I would have preferred there to have been a women's intercontinental championship over the United States. But I don't know. I guess we got to see what happens, because there has to be a competition between the GMs, and he's going to have to bounce back one way or another. And I think by introducing the title, it's probably going to be his response to that, which should be a very easily assumption of it being a women's intercontinental championship. But for what it's worth, thank goodness and about time we got the women's United States championship mid-card title.
Nah, who wants to hear next?
Round of applause, because it's about time, like you said, too, James. I mean, honestly, as someone who on this very show talked about the NXT women's division, coming up and they're on the door, this just gives me more hope for women's wrestling, right? The bigger legitimization in the WWE of women's wrestling, because we have this mid-card title. I would have also preferred the Intercontinental, because I'm a mark for that, and that's my favorite belt of all time, but that's neither here nor there. But what this does for me, it just shows that they're taking women's wrestling seriously now in WWE to the nth degree. So now we're going to have multiple storylines, hopefully, revolving around championships. We're going to hopefully use it the right way, like the Intercontinental Championship was used for all these years as a stepping stone to the next level. And it just gives me joy to know that we're going to actually see someone hold up this title that we never thought in a million years we'd see. So a big win all around for WWE and for the fans, because now we're going to get more women's wrestling.
Hey, really quickly for Silas, before you get in there, I don't know if it was you or our social media manager, Marcus, but somebody I remember talking to, and they were saying how they wish Jey Uso's Intercontinental Championship had the blue outline to it, and then they did it, and everybody was like, holy hell, that looks good. I just keep thinking, if they do the women's one, what color accent would they use? And if they went red, holy hell, that might look amazing. that might be my first women's championship I purchased, because I think it looks bomb. But go ahead, Silas.
So this is what I'm gonna up you, Damian, and 2 Chains. I think on the Raw side, or if they try to up it with the United States Championship, and once again, I agree with you both. I think it is about time. I think the other title should not be the Intercontinental title. I think it should be the Women's European title. Bring that European title back, and I would definitely purchase it to go with my men's European title that I have, because I think that would be fantastic for that, to bring some nostalgic in the Women's European title on that side. But I think this is about time. As you said, Damian, this is all about how we're trying to increase the value of women's wrestling. But we're realizing is so many talented women wrestlers that we have right now in Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, that we don't need to pair every one of them in a tag team just to make them relevant. As much as, Jade and Bianca Belair have been great, they're still individual wrestlers that can still compete for these secondary titles. I wouldn't be mad if Jade Cargill went after for this US title, or if it's another title that came on another brand, but we don't have to keep them relevant by keeping them in tag teams. You're kind of combining them into, forcing them into do different things. But I think it's definitely great that you can have these mid-card titles and definitely have more stories evolve around, especially if Netflix is moving to 3 hours or SmackDown moves to 3 hours. You're going to need more things to fill. And why not get a mid-card women's title feud, which would definitely bring more content, more things that they can do for these wrestling promotions. I'm loving it right now. I'm loving it.
You didn't listen to the host, and he said,
Nope.
Don't name any names.
Don't name any names.
But
We will get you name the name, sir. You didn't
sorry.
pay attention.
Naming names. Jesus.
I'm sorry. But I didn't say predictions, but no, that wasn't.
Nah, you just booked Jade.
There you go.
We heard you, sir.
But that wasn't my booking. I don't want to book her, but just giving it an example.
Big crab in here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have the first ever U.S. women's title, and my concern is not because we don't need this belt or anything. My concern is that it's kind of like a trope. You don't really have anything for anybody. You don't have a meaningful storyline, going. Maybe there's nothing that you see down the road for the next 3-4 months or something like that. I just give them a belt, let them carry it. and then that will just generate something for them. I can see that, being a thing, and that really could be a solution to a lot of issues with people just waffling. But then again, that kind of takes the onus off of actual creative storytelling when you kind of just lean on the fact that, like, oh, okay, well, and this is not a prediction or anything like that, but, well, Jade's not hot anymore, give her the belt. Or, okay, well, she could turn on Bianca, and they can feud over the belt. Or let's just have somebody. And then how many times have we seen Kevin Owens turn on somebody for the belt? It just becomes a trope at this point. And again, I like the idea of the belt. I like the idea. I mean, and it is a long time coming, but I just hope that WWE doesn't just rely on the fact that the belt's going to bail them out of lazy booking.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's fair to say, but in a lot of ways, what is a championship? What is a belt in wrestling? It's a storytelling device. So it's the nature of the beast that obviously the belt is going to be used to further stories and to be the centerpiece of stories and be motivation for characters. It is what it is. So with that said, now we're talking characters, what everyone's waiting for here. Let's get to the next part of this question, the part that has a lot of people talking about this week. Who should be first? Who should be the first women's United States champion? So here's my thoughts on this when I started thinking about it. We're talking today. Now, we don't know how soon they're going to do this thing. Could be, stretched out through the end of the year. Who knows? We don't know how they're filling it or anything yet. Hopefully, we'll get something about that tomorrow night on SmackDown. But looking at the lay of the land right now, for me personally, you got Liv Morgan on Raw as a champion. You got Nia Jax on SmackDown as a champion. You got two heels as champions. So in my mind, whoever this is going to be, I think it should be a babyface. It should be someone with some substantial name value to get this thing off the ground, because you got to get this in credibility right out of the gate. I want a breath of fresh air. I want something different. And I don't know, for me, and of course, both brands, we're looking at Raw and SmackDown, but I don't know, in my head, kind of, I'm like, Nick Aldis unveiled this. I'm thinking SmackDown more than Raw for this, in my mind.
Poor Adam Pearce, man.
Adam Pearce, I know. He'll get his day. He'll get his day, but it ain't right now. For me personally, looking at the names available, I'm liking Naomi. Maybe to get this thing off the ground.
Man,
that's what's jumping out at me. Who wants to go next? That's what I'm about.
I was about to say I want to go next, but go ahead, James, because I hope you don't take mine.
I love the prediction, but again, it just makes me go back to Kalani Jordan, where it's just like she was somebody that was on the come up, and the championship put her in the space to be a part of that 5-on-5 women's match, and she was clearly in a star-studded other team of folks from all across the world, and like it made her like important to that group. It's nothing.
You want to make somebody with the belt.
Yeah, you could make somebody. So I think that there's a few names that I think we all know has potential. We just haven't seen them get their big chance. And the two names that really, really jump out at me is Chelsea Green, because damn, would she be so fun with that title, or Mia Yim. Somebody I think that's still been in the shuffle a lot, and I think her having that championship, I think, could really, really take her to the next level. So those are easily my two, and I think that you want to go back. I go to what Jamal said, the trope of like, we don't have too much for this person. They've been dancing around here a little bit, but like, let's make the story be booked with the championship, since we clearly couldn't figure out something creative that sticked. And I think having that championship puts eyes on their matches, and there's always the opportunity of, does the title switch hands, which also creates additional interest to whoever's in that match, especially when there's two names that you're like, oh, this is either filling time or this is just the appetizer before the entree. So those are two names I would love to see. Man, Chelsea Green having a championship and then having Piper with her, I just could see the shenanigans going crazy there.
So I'll say this. Chelsea Green was my person that I was going to say, because Will, to go in contrary of you, Yes, I think because you got two heels right now, you want to balance that for for this new title. However, I honestly think I just have this gut feeling on tomorrow we may see a cash in where you see Nia Jax won't have that anymore, and you'll have a new face that will come in on the SmackDown title, for the women's side. That's just my prediction. However, because Two Chains went,
A
Chelsea
cash in
James
tomorrow.
cash in tomorrow. I agree with that because I think Chelsea with that is definitely somebody that's going to be fun, and you have a heel that's going to be chased, and you have a story that goes along with it. So whoever Chelsea turns it over, you're making that person that next mid-tier star. I think that's what's going to happen. However, because Two Chains went that way, I'm going to give you a different person. And I'm going to say Lash Legend. And I think this person, if booked the right way, because you've been bringing her up slowly but surely, trying to tease how she's going to be on the main roster, how she's looked on Raw or SmackDown, or even, in Saudi, when you had her in there, you're trying to tease to see what type of reaction that you would get. And I think when you have something like a new US title, you have to do it in some type of ladder match where you can give different spots to different people, but then you can have that surprise person win to make them relevant of, yes, you're going to be our first person that's going to be doing this. And I would say, because Two Chainz picked Chelsea, I'm going to say Lash Legend.
Where's this ladder match happening with Survivor Series being the next pay-per-view?
Royal Rumble.
So the new belt that's coming out, you're going to hold it all the way to January.
Yes, because what you're going to do is you're going to book a series of matches of qualifying. Let's say you have 8 people that's going to be in this, that's going to compete. Some from NXT, some from Raw, some from SmackDown.
They've done less.
Yeah, so, I think it'll be the Royal Rumble.
Okay. So
go ahead, David.
I was going to say Chelsea, but both of y'all took my answer. That's fine. Because the shenanigans would ensue, and I would love it. I'm going to go a little outside the box for one of my picks, and I'm going to say, well, maybe not the box, but just Roxanne Perez should be the first U.S. women's champion because she's been, I don't want to say she's been carrying the NXT women's division, but we've seen all the matches she's put on, the people she's worked with. And honestly, if Jordynne Grace was actually signed to WWE, I'd say her. But if not, Roxanne, just because we know she's the prodigy. People who watch NXT on the CW know who she is. She can either be a detestable heel or a fiery baby face. So you can go either way with her. But if I had to put money down, I would say Bayley. Strictly because you want to give this belt legitimacy we're talking about, right? And Charlotte's still injured because I would have thought Charlotte, like, okay, great, we're going to make Charlotte Flair.
They would have hated that.
I know, but I think Bayley, because it gives the belt immediate legitimacy, like, oh, this multi-time women's champion is now the first time. It was like when Daniel Bryan won the Intercontinental Championship after winning the world title the year before. So I think if we want to play it safe, we're going to give it to someone like a known commodity and think of all the feuds she could have. Or if you want to go left field, pick somebody from NXT. I do like the Lash Legend pick. She's improved leaps and bounds from when she first started. And she's just amazing now in the ring. I've become a fan. But Roxanne Perez would be my choice if I didn't get Bayley.
I actually like all of those picks, and I can't think of anyone that could be more worthy. I mean, that's basically the meta right now. That's your top 6 or 7. Except all of you heathens have forgotten who built the women's division from the ground up. The greatest women's champion ever is still on the WWE roster. I just checked just to make sure. And there is no way in the hell that you can have something happen for the first time ever without including the creator. The one, not the number 1, not the number 2, but the top 3 greatest woman of all time in WWE. There is no reason that Stephanie McMahon should not be the first ever women's champion, U.S. Women's champion. She represents America. She represents wrestling across the world, really. But if it had to start somewhere, it would start in America. And I'll be damned if Stephanie McMahon does not represent the America that I want to live in. I'm just saying, how does this not happen? Now, graciously, she would probably decline. I understand that. But assuming that she didn't, great pick. I know, you're welcome. Assuming that she graciously declines, I honestly think, and I'm not surprised that nobody kind of like mentioned her, but I do think because she's longer in her career, I don't know how much long she has to go, before she wants to go. I honestly think the Natty Neidhart should be that person.
I'm literally big fan of her personally. I think towards the end of her career, her focus has really been about developing the young talent, and no one could dispute of the folks that she's put over.
She's been the CM Punk of WWE before Punk got there.
1,000%. And I do think this would be definitely a great, almost like a moment of giving her flowers in the moment. As we know that at some point she has to transition to doing what her and her husband do right now behind the scenes, but maybe with the whole ID thing, maybe they actually become like a staple in all of this, and that actually becomes her really behind the scenes role with the WWE. But yeah, I think Natty getting it would definitely, for somebody I think they have booked horribly for the longest here.
Yeah.
I think that might give me just a little bit more interest, because the gimmick ain't working and whatnot. But again, for what she's done to the time she's worked with, you got to respect that. But who has signed up for a Natty match? In God knows how long. Besides maybe the match, didn't she work Roxanne in NXT?
Yeah.
So, did that NXT. Yeah.
But let me ask this question though. Hold on,
myself. One thing I want to ask you though. Mm-hmm. You're talking about Lash. You're not, so like the fact that they brought them up as a tag team, and like that is a little bit, as you said, that was like a sort of a test drive to see how we were going to respond.
Yep.
And you want to take the momentum away by making her a singles champion?
Yes, because what I think you can do is like a manager singles champion, because I think the way that you would do it is Lash is somebody that you want to push up. Now, once again, you do have to incorporate her.
The tag team.
No, I'm not buying it as a tag team.
Cara under the bus.
No. I mean, I think I see her just more as a managerial role, and I'm not trying to knock her ring, what she does in the ring, but I just think when you think about Lash, that's somebody that you want to push. Like think of the Funkadactyls, right? And how they got Naomi off from that. I see it in the same way with this situation.
They didn't really get her off of that. Somebody lost the job and somebody continued to work.
but could you see it ending up in that similar situation?
I was digging them as a gimmick for a while. I mean, they were entertaining, and I think if Cameron had gotten, first of all, I think if the system is at any extent of what it is now, I think Cameron probably could be a lot better performer. And when she came back, some of these few times you saw glimpses of what she possibly could do. Clearly, she's not going to be in the same, conversation. Naomi, that's world-class talent there. But Cameron wouldn't be as bad as she was if they had to actually gave her a chance. But hold on, because you're proving your own point here. If you're saying that you're not buying into them as a tag team, so the whole point of them coming up to see if they could run on the main roster, you're basically saying they need to go back and get it together, because they clearly want them to tag. So which one is it, sir? Did they show out or not?
I think that they made a reaction. They got a reaction. However, I think you have so many tag teams on the women division because you were trying to legitimize why you had these women tag teams. And it seems like the title wasn't getting defended a lot. So you had to pair people together. And when I was saying about Jade and Bianca, I think they are there because you want to make the women's tag team titles legitimate. But now if you bring in these single titles to incorporate with the tag team title and then the two world titles, now you can venture off people in different things. You don't have to force feed gimmicks. You don't have to force feed teams. You can let people who have natural talent do the singles run on their own, especially at a mid-tier title.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you think Jakara Jackson is as bad as Cameron, is what I'm hearing you say, right? That's what you're saying?
I would say if she was on NFLDraft.com for her pro comparison, that was a pro comparison.
You gotta stand on it, sir. That's
man. Yeah, no, you gotta stand on business on that one, sir. Because
I'm gonna stand on business. That's a pro comparison. That's what I'm gonna stand on business. But let me ask this though, because going what you said, Damian, earlier about Bailey, and then Jamal, when you was talking about Natty. Are we looking at a new realm for, the Grand Slam for women's title where we have to give them their kudos. Because right now we have the Grand Slam for Bailey, right? And what she's done. But if you bring this new title, does she need that, or does she have to have that on that resume to be that first to do that? Because I didn't even think about Bailey. I was just thinking about up and comers. But then you have these vets that can get these solidified continuation of the Grand Slam because they haven't gotten this title yet.
Well,
but
like
they
you
got
were saying, to
everything
give
else.
the belt credibility. Another
Yeah,
name I
yeah,
was thinking of
yeah.
that no one mentioned was I don't know if she's ready to return from injury yet or anything, but I was thinking of Asuka as another possibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all depends on where she is with her recovery and stuff. But I was much more focused on you make the title first, then you can start giving it to other people to make them. But you got to solidify the title from the jump, in my mind. But I don't know.
Yeah.
So now that
I can't believe you threw Jakara Jackson under the bus, though, man. That's still
exactly.
I mean, I like her. I just, just
you
not
heard
the
it here
biggest-
first on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast.
just not the
Celis does
biggest-
not like Jakara.
I mean, she's cool. She does what she needs to do.
But that,
I
I
like
mean,
Lash better.
my whole point is that like that's the point of like bringing people up to see if they're ready. And it's not that they were bad, but like maybe they need a little bit more time. I think collectively they work different styles. They have great presentation. They
I'm about to say great
each
ring
other.
entrance.
Yeah, so like just give them time, but like you're ready to pull the rug from her. You're like, yeah, Lash is ready. Jakar, get her out of here. Like put the and like the thing is, you put the you're saying that Jakar as a manager that does nothing for anybody's development besides screen time.
Everybody ain't meant to be a wrestler.
Man, you made her Marty Jannetty though, man. Like, come on.
I will stand on what I say. I am. I just like Lash more. I do. I just like Lash more.
So if Jakara does win a title within her time in WWE, we're gonna revisit this and we're gonna have Celis defend his opinion.
I will eat crow on that. I will eat crow. I will. You heard it here. I will. But in Jakara, and respect to you, I do like you. It's nothing against you. But when you just think about Lash versus you, I would prefer Lash.
Oh my God. All right. Any other thoughts on the Women's US Championship, or is it time for halftime?
I do agree it should be a ladder match actually that decides it. I like the thought of a ladder match and having multiple people thinking they have a shot, right? So I think that's a great way to inaugurate a belt. So I think that's a great way to go about it. So good suggestion.
So no tournament? You don't want a tourney?
And I'm always leery about ladder matches being like it's obviously a gimmick match. So like, where do you put that? Because you can't put it on a Rumble because that's its own thing. War Games is its own thing, and then Elimination Chambers is in March. So is there
Saturday
something
night's main event? They get it done by mid-December.
That could work. That could work.
I don't know. I don't.
That sounds kind of soon to me.
And well, I mean, more importantly, they do have a bunch of Netflix content to get hyped for.
Sure. Yeah.
First Raw on Netflix.
Yeah.
Maybe
there
that's
you go.
That'd be
There
great. First Raw on Netflix. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That's right, first week of January. So maybe that might be the perfect window there where it gives them a month and a half to play things out and see what they want to do.
So we're thinking not the network kind of thing, right? That's
First Raw on
Netflix. The network is Netflix.
Yeah, First Raw on Netflix. I'm good with that. That's a brilliant idea. First Raw on Netflix.
That's going to be the equivalent of a pay-per-view. That first Raw on Netflix. So
plus it's 3 hours. You can fit a ladder match in a 3-hour show.
Absolutely. Make that even. Well, would you say that would be a main event on the first Raw on Netflix? No.
I don't think so.
Probably not. It would be a big event on it, but a featured attraction. But
it could open the show.
It could be
it could open.
They could open the show.
They'll have a lot of big things on that first Raw on Netflix. That show is going to be packed from top to bottom for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I guess we've covered it, nailed all that stuff. So with that said, it is now halftime. We will take our halftime break, and then we'll come back after that. We got to get into this WWE ID program because that launched, I think, the first week I was out. I've never gotten to speak anything about that, and since it launched. Now we have names. So we have an idea of what this thing is and what it's looking like now, as opposed to just like our general announcement of it. So we're going to talk about that in the second half. And who knows what all else. All kinds of stuff happening here. So stay with us. Your Big Old Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
A little birdie told me, everybody, that you may be interested in doing some sponsorship and advertising opportunities with us here at Big Gold Belt Media. You know what? You might as well, because we are the golden standard for all of your media needs. Why would you want to go anywhere else? Besides, all of your pre-roll ads, your mid-roll ads, as well as your on-air reads are going to be done by me, Damian G. Yeah, professional broadcaster, Damian G. We do all types of social media promotions. That means your podcast, your IG, your Facebook, your Twitter, and your business website all get shouted out on our network here at Big Gold Belt Media, where we cover wrestling, movies, comics, and more. And you can find out more information and make those inquiries, kids, because, limited time offer here at Big Gold Belt Group at gmail.com. Again, that is Big Gold Belt Group at gmail.com. Why would you want to go anywhere else? I wouldn't. Well, I work here, but I still wouldn't even if I didn't. So again, Big Gold Belt Media for all your sponsorship and advertising opportunities, your podcast, your IG, your Facebook, your Twitter, all of your social media platforms, as well as any business website you want us to promote on our show. Big Gold Belt Group at gmail.com. And let them know Damon G sent you.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. For all of our fans who's been here, I don't know, for years, shall we say now, we usually take this moment to spotlight the independents, which Jamal has done wonderfully for all this time, and we have always shown our love and support for the independent scenes. But we are going to change this segment going forward. Now, today, we're not going to do it immediately, but I'm letting you know as a placeholder, as you can look forward to for shows beyond this point. We're still sticking with the indies now, but we're getting a little help from the ID program, because what we're going to do now is we are going to spotlight one of the folks who have been ID'd and give our thoughts about that person. So look forward to us taking either new announcements or current announcements and just letting you all know what we think. Have we seen their matches before? Are we excited to see what they have? Where are they from? What school were they attached to? All those different things as we talk about their potential and future with WWE. So we will come back to this in just a moment, but we got to talk about the ID program fully. So let's
hold on 1 second. Because
okay, what you got?
This is officially the last indie spotlight. Can you give me a minute? Can you give me a minute to talk to people?
Let the man get his send off. Let the man get his send off.
Can I get a minute, please? A moment of silence.
Here's Giant Crab with this week's Big Old Podcast Indie Wrestling Spot.
And this week, for the final time, the indie spotlight shifts to Brooklyn, New York, GCW. You wouldn't understand. They're going to be running the Roulette Intermedium. That is on Atlantic Avenue. 3rd and Atlantic Avenue, about 2 blocks from Barclays Center. And the big get, shockingly enough, the big get for this show, you wouldn't understand, is Zeta Steel making her GCW debut. Hot damn. How about that? It's almost like her name's getting out there for some reason. Now, this show is happening in conjunction with Defy and Progress Wrestling. You remember they merged together earlier this year. Mm-hmm. So you have that show, Defy and Progress, coming to Brooklyn. That show starts at 3. And then you have GCW, which starts at 8. Both of those shows are going to be at the Roulette Intermedium, 509 Atlantic Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, about 2 blocks away from Barclays Center down Atlantic Avenue. It's right in the middle of downtown Brooklyn-ish. But more importantly than that is that both Defy, GCW, and Progress are all going to Chicago. And both of these things are going to happen, say, the Friday after Thanksgiving, which is Black Friday, and then the Sunday. So if you're in New York, Brooklyn, Jersey, Long Island, wherever you come, Connecticut, even Staten Island, you're allowed to. You can come across. Get to Barclays Center, get to the Roulette Intermedium off there off Atlantic Avenue, and then in Chicago, at Talia Hall, which is on the lower west side of Chicago, all of them, GCW, Progress, and Defy, are going to do it again on the lower west side of Chicago. So you can get all your ticket information at defywrestling.com. GCW, Progress, they all have all the information. But for the last time, it is probably one of the biggest indie spotlights of this week. You're welcome.
There we go. Now, back to the rollout of the WWE ID program. How are we approaching this? Should we thumbnail the program itself first and say just
what is it?
Yeah, let's hit that.
I mean, we have talked about what it is, but I think I mean, you haven't got to talk about it, but I think
I'm still a little fuzzy about what it really is too. So
okay, let's do a quick overview.
Yeah,
a quick overview. So the way they're doing this thing is, I think part of the confusion with this is like throwing people off a little bit. Is they are essentially partnering with a network of schools is what they're doing. Let me pull up that list here.
Can I while you're looking that up too, I also feel like while we are talking about them partnering with a network of schools, I feel like they're also sort of like credentialing a network of schools as well too.
Exactly.
Because the biggest thing is that we knew the usual suspects for the systems, like the Deli Boys back in the day. They had their school. Obviously, we know Evolve was kind of working through them. Progress at a time, like we knew
those are their preferred places.
Yes, and I think there was a measure of prestige to some of these places as well too. But now it seems like the usuals that are still around are still getting that rub, either because they're that prestigious school, or because a WWE talent of sorts is involved with the schools. But it seems like they're getting a little bit more deeper into the weaves now. So while you pulling that up, Will, I think we have NIL for college. We have ID for the indies. That's how we should be looking at this. But go ahead, Will.
Yeah, okay. So the network of schools is Black and Brave out in Iowa, Seth Rollins' place in Davenport. Yep. Elite Pro Wrestling Training Center, that's Scott Reed and Mike Hollow in Concord, New Hampshire, up there in the Northeast. So definitely affiliated with the folks, because I think one of them trained with Triple H's trainer. Oh my God, why am I blanking on his name?
Rip Rogers?
No. Tall guy, 70s. Oh my God, ears. Oh my God, I can picture him. Oh, holy crap.
Killer Kowalski.
Yes, Killer Kowalski.
Jeopardy.
There you go, Killer Kowalski. So guys affiliated with that in the Northeast from back in the day. Knox Pro Entertainment Academy was Rikishi and Black Pearl down in California. There's them. And of course, Nightmare Factory, Cody and QT Marshall in Georgia, and Reality of Wrestling, Booker T's school in Texas. Those are the affiliated schools with the deal. But the other component of this is pieces of talent being given the ID designation, which is what they've been rolling out. The names that they've been attaching the prospect thing to. So I think a lot of people were thinking it's like, this isn't getting signed to NXT because you're still on the indies and it's not getting a full-fledged contract, but it's more of a, we got our eye on you. We're going to help develop you. We want you to work with these partner schools, and there's definitely money involved. It's kind of like, we got a marker on you and a first refusal type kind of thing. Type deal. There's definitely paperwork involved in this, but make no mistake, it's not like they're getting sent down to Florida to go to the Performance Center. This is like a step before that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it when you said that. I was wondering, or is this like a collective gathering of folks before they put together a combine, or do they ultimately do like a glorified tryout with these folks that they're not this resorting to whatever respective city that they're in, but they're like, no, we're putting together these folks to see what they can do from all over. One other thing I just want to quickly say, and I get back to you, is that what I really do like about this though is, for all the folks that have been to independent shows, especially like WrestleMania weekends and whatnot, and you hear like William Regal's backstage and you're just like, what is William Regal doing at blah, blah, blah promotion? And, obviously there's time. Well, let's just call it what it is. They've done this. The ID program has already been here for years, because we're not going to pretend like William Regal and I believe even Triple H was there at that year when Keith Lee and Dijak were still free agents. And we saw the matches. We knew what it was. And that was the last time they worked independent matches, because they said, this is talent that we need in the WWE. So like, it's good to see them sort of legitimizing that, and also giving folks that designation so that they're able to get the respect they deserve, and then ultimately we see what happens for the moment they've been ID'd and what happens through their journey with WWE. So like it's cool to kind of really be a part of that journey instead of it being like a rumor. And if you know, you know. But now we really get to see the story from beginning to whenever they decide to hang it up.
There you go. Actually, in some ways, it kind of made me, when we were saying on laying that out just now, it's kind of like in music when you get an A&R deal in the early stages where it's like, we still want you to develop. We're not signing you to a big money deal yet, but we interested in you. Keep doing your thing. Here's some money to help you out. And we keeping our eyes on you, and we're going to be kind of like, change this up. If you interested in working with us, there's things we'd like different. But we ain't committing to you completely yet. But we interested enough that, you know, we'll give you a taste. You know, that's kind of where this is at. So
I'll
they've
even
announced.
I was about to say, I'll even add this. Think about the practice squad of the NFL, right? You know, you practice up a little bit, and then there may be times where you get called up to do something. Not saying you're playing a game, but you may do a segment on TV where it's like, hey, aren't they part of the ID program? And then you know somebody's gonna pick you up, and then they sign you to that main roster, whether it's NXT, you know, Raw, SmackDown.
Yeah, it's another step in the process. And like we were mentioning earlier, to James about, you know, the tryouts in Vegas, like on SummerSlam weekend and all this, all the other ones. It's like, I think what they're doing here, a big key is that they're still going to do those tryouts for like the college athletes and those combines and all that. But I think this is also acknowledging that there is another path if you're in the indies where you might not necessarily have to go through those tryouts with like, you know, the combines or where it's like we're trying to build someone from the ground up. This is like, we're still keeping our eye on the indie folks. And it's a different way to get to that same destination of the performance center. Either way, at the end, the next step's the performance center in this deal. Yeah. It's a matter whether you're going through the combine or you're going through the indies and through like their preferred schools. It's another way to get to Florida one way or another, in my opinion. That's what this is.
So then I wonder who this is for, like specifically, because the indies are a mixed bag of talent that have 20-year careers, that have 20-second careers. Yep. And obviously, if you're thinking of a person that has just started out, they lied up on their application and they're actually 16 and they're just hitting the ground running, then yeah, you would probably want to go to an accredited school. And I can understand how the path would be this way. But if you are, just for example, Jordan Grace, and yes, she indies, then TNA, and then obviously by WWE. But if you are Masha Slamovich, you know, well, another one that's contracted and stuff like that. But how do you, Laney Luck, for example?
I think Darius Carter is a good name to mention here.
Darius Carter. I mean, we can sit here and go with people that have never made it past
people who've been around a minute,
IWTV level, that level, and you could kind of go, they're a known commodity on the indies, one of the stars of indies, and that's why they get top billing on the indies. Do they still need to go to Houston to Reality of Wrestling? Do they still need to go up to New Hampshire? I mean, like, is these WWE ID school the way in for somebody that has, 8, 9, 10, 15 years in the games, doing it on the indies? Because I can't imagine them running up on Effie and being like, we need you to go to the Nightmare Factory and pass their test. So I'm just kind of like a little bit unsure of what the structure is and like how one would go about getting in. Because if you are a guy like Effie, for example, no, he's not going to go to the Nightmare Factory. He doesn't need to. He is the name. He is the brand. You either want him or you don't. It is what it is at this point. Same thing with a bunch of people that we can name. But now it's kind of like, is the only way through the practice squad, is to get on the team. You need to make the 80-man roster. It is not a guarantee that you are doing something that's unaffiliated with the NFL that they'll give you a look. If you are a megastar in the UFL or Canada, then obviously talent comes across people's radar, but that's a hell of a long shot than actually going through the combine and get into a practice squad. So if you are a person with a resume, what's the path for you?
Okay, so you said who's this for? I think if I was an independent wrestler and a name and a person that I'm sure all of us love here, I think of somebody like Logan, who we knew for a while was super comfortable in working within this area. I think now what I think about with the program is expanding now really makes sense. And territories or schools or promotions that are within this system are worth the extra mile because they have the extra eyes. So would you just necessarily go down to a show in Florida for X amount of many dollars, or would you go down to Florida where there's a potential booking that has the potential opportunity to go to another place? Now, again, some people are very comfortable saying, I'm going to work my loop. But if your loop isn't in this system, how do you get noted by these bigger things? Because either you're trendy and the social media kind of does the thing, and even that sometimes cools off instantly. You think about somebody like the Progressive Liberal. I'm not saying like he was like the hottest wrestler, but he was hot at a point, and that went to a certain extent, and then it cooled off. But like if you are a wrestler with the time, now I go back to Darius Carter, where he works a particular area now, you say like, you kind of want to keep your eyes on opportunities at some of these other schools that may have other eyes invested into them. So it's like,
let me ask you this,
Marcellus,
if you're Sugar Dunkerton, what are you? What's your lane?
Same thing. I think it's the same as that thing. Sellers, I would say this, and I'm sure you would add something to this as well. Like, if you were inspiring to be a quarterback, you're either going to go to, if you're in this area, do you go to Bowie State? No shade to the HBCUs because I went to one. Or do you put all of your marbles in trying to get into Maryland? Or I mean, basketball, for instance. Basketball is probably the best example right now. You couldn't get into Georgetown. You couldn't get into Maryland. But what's the chance you get to VCU, considering the eyes that are set on that program? I think that's where this looks at now. Do you go to VCU or Virginia State? Virginia State, maybe, because it's a big school, but do they care about basketball in the same light that VCU does?
Right.
So I think that's where everything reset on the Indies.
But to be
now.
fair, though, your college analogy applies to 18, 19, 20-year-olds. I'm talking about the guy that's 24 that's been playing in Turkey. Went maybe he did his thing in college, maybe not. But then he went off to Turkey, he went off to Greece, he went off to Lithuania, and he has a 5, 6, 7, 8 year career as an established product, doing a thing over there, and then wants to try his hand back home. What's the process for them? Because I'm not saying that you can't be any age and go back to college, but then now you have to be like, well, damn, I need to get into Duke in order to go and do a thing, but I'm already 24. Been playing ball, did a thing, have the receipts, and now I got to go and fight these 19-year-olds for the same check. I'm not saying that that's what you're saying, but it does kind of feel that way for the WWE prospect, because they don't really say specifically that if you are starting out, start here.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing about it, because I think it can go both ways. So saying your comparison to James, let's say, like, I'll even say this: you might even go to said community college to try to get you a route to get to the Dukes, to get to the Texas, if you're trying to do that college basketball route. But think about what you just said to John Crab. You kind of talked about the LaMelo Ball route, right? He left high school, went overseas and did overseas for a couple of years, and then came back and got drafted. You might have that. You might have that 24, 25-year-old that may have not made to the opportunity. Okay, maybe I wasn't that college athlete in college. Like, think of Javon Evans, right?
I think Ricky Rubio's the name that comes out to me here. He was drafted early, and they let him get like 6 years overseas. Bismarck Biombo is another person. Like, they ID'd him, but he didn't come back and play.
You gotta go get seasoning.
Yes, get seasoning first, get that build up, and then in about 2-3 years, that international contract, that's like you said, come back. Okay, now you're ready. And this may be that opportunity where it's just that seasoning. It's not quite the NXT, it's not quite developmental per se, but it's a way where you can get that seasoning per se, because you have the talent of what you need to go. But go ahead, Damien. I see you want to jump in.
I actually have a question. I don't know if it's been talked about online. I haven't seen it. What is the criteria to be ID'd as a professional
I
wrestler.
ain't going to tell you that. You know they're going to keep that close to the vest.
Okay, so there is no like boxes
Like no
you have
age.
to
Yes.
Look at
Correct.
Well,
Damien.
if there is, they're not saying. I'll
Yeah,
say
look at
this,
Damien
looking
trying to get an EO
looking at some
case
of these
opened
names,
up.
what I'm finding interesting now. A lot of them, debuted in the 2020s, but there's one as far back as 2016. So they are being kind of all over the map with there are definitely some older folks in this mix to go with some younger folks. It's an interesting mix of names so far that they have on here as far as seeing where because NXT has been so focused on youth recently, and it's okay, not everyone here is necessarily a young kid that they're giving this prospect designation to.
And last thing I'll quickly say is that them doing this really does legitimize the independents, because what we are seeing in place, a lot of us has known to be happening for years. You worked under Gabe at Evolve, you are absolutely on your way to WWE through the back door. I mean, you look at Austin Theory, we knew he was on his way a long time ago there. What was the other promotion, or what was the it was another little small promotion that was with Evolve, or was it just their championship, the W something W? I can't think of it. It'll come to me in a second. But nonetheless, if you were in the Gabe Saporski's stratosphere, you probably was going to get a look at WWE. And I mean, there was even a time too where Quack in the crew at Jakar, they were also a group of folks that you said if you were working there, you're probably on your way to either ROH or you might slip up and end up at WWE. So I think now we're just seeing it being more legitimized. We're if you're working in these schools, you're probably going to get a look. You're probably going to get ID, just do what you have to do. So work hard because somebody's watching instead of folks that's probably just working and getting a check. I think now you see that there is something to work hard for now.
So aside from just getting ID'd, aside from just getting ID'd and getting your name on a placard on social media, let's say, what else do you get? If a contract, like you said, do we just get first dibs? That's why I'm still a little confused about this. It's like you draft someone.
The information is not out there. And I will also say too, your business is your business. Whatever's happening behind the scenes, you just need to make sure you're handling it. And I just think that it's just being exposed that you're on WWE's radar. Do you get an invite? Is there a special? I don't know. Do you get
there might be? There's got to be special training sessions they're planning. Right. I mean, they're not doing all this just to be oh, well, here's some money. Just keep working some shows and tell
keep
us
working, kid. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Send us a tape in a month. It's no. They're clearly working out a system now.
Yeah. Okay.
But then that's in development as they're doing all this. Now, with that said,
Will, hold on, because you didn't get a chance to talk, so I want to ask you a question real quick.
Yeah.
What do you feel about the gimmick of the ID being ID'd? Because we done seen two people get ID'd on SmackDown, I believe it was.
Right.
We've obviously seen Booker T do one at his show, and it was like a segment. It was filmed and whatnot.
Yeah, they're gonna turn this into a thing. Absolutely.
Okay, you digging that?
Yeah, why not? Hell, go with it. Someone's going to turn it into a damn gimmick on the indies before we know it. You know damn well. They're going to make
Joey Janela's going to do it.
Oh,
someone's going to do that for heel heat. They're going to come out there in a WWE shirt and play that up for all it's worth and make that their whole personality.
That would be Joey Janela.
Oh my God, you giving them ideas. I think my only thing with it, I think it is cool from the management point that they're doing it, but I feel especially the SmackDown one, I felt like their reactions was so scripted. Bro, you were just an extra, and now they're saying they want to keep you. I think that should be a little bit more of a, oh my God, I can't believe that. Because at one point you thought you were getting a quick little extra check that you've probably done 100 times, and now they're telling you that they're keeping you. I don't know. It felt a little scripted there, but yeah. We'll see how the indies get a hold of this and make it into a whole real gimmick. That's gonna be hilarious.
All right, so we're running short on time here. Are we going to talk about number one, the first name they threw out there? We mentioned earlier. So Zeta Steele, the real deal. She was the first one they named of everyone they could possibly name. And the way they're doing these announcements is interesting. They're telling you where they were scouted from. Scouted from Combat Zone Wrestling, hometown Washington, D.C. So we got a local tie in here. and debuted in 2022. Does the Unprettier as her finisher, and as Giant Crab said earlier, we'll be working GCW this very weekend coming up. So that is our first name, Zeta Steel. Kind of, you think it's here they picked a woman first for the first one?
I don't see why not. Why not?
Was that true? Was she the first one?
She was the first announced. She was the first announced. Yeah.
And she's very young. She's not even 21, right? She's 20, only 20. So you use a rising star that's a woman. I'm not in fault of the pick. I'm not.
We started this podcast talking about a woman's title, so it doesn't really surprise me that they would go with a woman first.
I don't think it was like a affirmative action here. I just think they looked at whoever they looked at and announced them. I don't think they went deep and said it's got to be a woman. But I don't think that deep into it. But I will tell you that what I was most interested about with this, and nothing against her, is that much like I said earlier, CZW was not a school that I had on the radar that they would be looking into. So and I mean, like, for our area, which we could speak, that's not the school that I thought they would be looking at there. I didn't know they had a school, to be honest with you. I thought they just was a promotion. Yeah, well, promotion school, I was saying. But anyway, if there was a promotion I thought they may look at, I thought they might have pulled a recruit from MCW because, well, that's where a good chunk, well, I ain't a good chunk, but a few names that they have had on their roster did sort of originate there from. So CCW getting that rub, I think, is interesting. I think they've been around for years. We understand that, but like, I think this is definitely a good measure of notoriety for what they do here in this area.
Well, I mean, I think for WWE, they get the sanitized version of the indies. It's not about the talent. It's about where we're vetting these people from. Can we work with these organizations? Can we work, with these talents? And they're basically outsourcing NXT. And that's really what it feels like to me. And they're saying, like, hey, we want to put a contract on the contract. Go out there and find them. And yeah, sure, Twitter and everything like that will help. But it really does feel like we've seen versions of this before. Obviously, Tough Enough comes to mind as a program where you just get a bunch of people in, see how they do, and it goes from there. But this feels eerily similar to when AEW was doing it, where they would have talent show up at a hometown show of a big, pretty decent rising star on the indies and say, like, hey, you know who I am, so that you know why I'm here. Tony Khan says thank you, and he hands him a contract. And we've seen that happen at a bunch of big shows, and of course, the internet takes it from there. It really feels like a more streamlined, polished, corporate, buttoned-up version of that. And yeah, the initial spontaneity of, well, who's going to be the next to get ID'd? But, realistically, not every person that plays sports, not everybody needs to go to Duke or Power 5 school to make it that way. There are plenty of Hall of Famers that have been to smaller schools and whatever. The point is that, like, how do you make it quote unquote fair? And that's kind of my thing, because it does seem like if it's about the youth with the NIL deals and making and contracting out to colleges to say, well, send us your best, your most talented. And then it's about the indies, send us your youngest, your freshest, your most talented. What about, did that moment for people that have been on the indies for a minute, let's just say 10 years. Let's say 10 years to cut off. Did this moment pass them by?
So again, because I want to hear you all's reactions to Zeta. So I'm just going to quickly say you have a better chance of getting drafted into the NBA going to Duke than you got going to Davidson. We know who came from Davidson, but how many players went to Duke and made it to the NBA? And no matter if they're still around, whole starting lineups have went in the first two rounds without a blink of an eye. So I think when you say, well, who was their coach? What was the school they went to? In this case, you're going to say, well, who trained them? What promotion did they work? I think that's where the landscape of things starts to change. And I think we'll obviously be talking about this a lot more each and every week. But I to get back to the Zeta, I'm curious, like, Will, what is your thoughts? Where do you see this going?
I'm not sure. I've never seen Zeta wrestle, so I'm curious to check her out since she was the first one they anointed with the title. So I'm definitely curious to check her out now and see what she's got going. Because to be the first one announced is definitely, they could have picked anybody for the first one. So for her to get that, I think there has to be something to it. So I'm curious to see what her deal is now. It's definitely and anything is put a spotlight on her for me. That's my only thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I wonder where this extends to. Obviously, the 5 schools or 6 schools, whatever that you named, are run by WWE talent, so they kind of know what they're getting. But I wonder if they can make this work here. Where else will they expand? Because there are just as many indie promotions in Japan, or Mexico, or Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Where will that lead them? Going forward, and they could kind of say, because remember, NXT had that plan of global localization, where they wanted to do a thing under the NXT banner in a bunch of different hotspots around the world. Well, maybe this is like the 1.0 version of that. Because think about where these schools are. You have New England outside of Boston, you have Atlanta, you have Houston, and you have Southern California somewhere. And I know that I'm missing one. So they're strategically placed in most of the country.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of like, oh, okay. You don't have to go that far to go and do a thing. So interesting setup. The framework definitely seems to be there. And this definitely seems to play on what they were trying to do with NXT a few years ago.
Yeah, I think it's their way of doing it without having to actually set up offices. It's like, instead we just have like our affiliates that are already in place that we've approved of.
Yeah.
Less of a cash outlay at the beginning.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on it? Or are we heading to the home stretch here?
I just can't wait to see what happens.
All right. There we go. We'll be keeping an eye on it. That's going to be a theme of the show going forward. So before we launch tonight, we were saying we would talk about at the end, what else we into? What else we checking out this week? So since we got the big man here, we got the boss man. What's going on at Big Old Belt Media? What is the hot stuff of the week? I know what I'm thinking of this weekend.
Me too. I thought I knew what I was thinking about this week until I remembered that Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fights tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. There you go.
So
that's tomorrow night.
I think there's a lot to tune in for that, because obviously if you've never seen Mike Tyson fight live, because a lot of the younger cats haven't, then there you go. And obviously for the folks who wants to see him knock out Jake, including myself, can my man defy time? I'm feeling like he can. And I also feel like, all jokes aside, I feel like he's off the meds. So I feel like he might be in that joint of kill mode. So
he slapped him today.
Yeah, he did. And that interview he did with that little girl lets me know that Tyson is ready mentally
tomorrow night.
But I think what's important is that keep looking at what Netflix is doing with their live infrastructure. So now they're getting ready to host a sporting event. This is the true test right now for Raw, because this is a production that has a lot of attention, a lot of eyes, and it can't go wrong. When Love Is Blind didn't go right, they were able to say, we'll do it tomorrow. People were mad, but we'll live. This don't work. Everybody will be mad, because this is what, if you can't be there, you want to see it live. So I'm very excited to see how Netflix changes the game with this live sporting events. And yes, I know they've done I'm about to say the Chappelle show, but they did stand up, including the Chappelle. So I know they've done that for that hour span, but we're talking about a whole fight promotion card, which will be deemed as a pay-per-view that's going to garner attention from across the world. So I'm very, very curious to see how this does. And then all roads leads to Raw in January.
There we go. Netflix's big test tomorrow night, Friday night. So
yes, sir.
Going to be interesting. All right. Well, folks, it's been a week. We are back on schedule Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Your Big Old Belt Wrestling podcast streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all the live streaming platforms that we can get it on. 8 p.m. live. And then, of course, podcast form appearing hours later. This one, we don't wait to the next day. It's kind of come later that evening. The audio form drops on all your favorite podcast platforms. If you still want to see the video, it is available living on YouTube in perpetuity, as we like to say. Let's see what else here. We got to run down the social media. Of course, on the social media, at Big Gold Belt across the board, no matter the social media platform. I think someone needs to build out their Blue Sky profile.
Thank you very much for mentioning that. I have taken it. I have ensured that it is there.
Okay.
Placeholders in place.
Placeholders in place. I got that early invite. Thank you, Will. I believe it was. Yep. But now everybody is migrating to the Blue Sky land, and we're there and ready to go. I would advise all of you all to secure your handles right now, whether you're going to use it or not.
Yep, got mine. So we all good. Yes. So at Big Gold Belt across the board on social media to keep up with things. And do not forget, of course, the website at biggoldbelt.com. Wrestling, movies, comics, and more. Your one-stop shop for entertainment is, of course, Big Gold Belt Media. Thanks for being with us here this week. Packed house with all the guys. I'm glad we all got to get through this. Next week we will be on the road to Full Gear. Survivor Series is coming. Lots of stuff happening before the end of the year. So we're going to have a lot to talk about each and every Thursday night as we go forward. So thanks for being with us, and we'll talk to y'all next week.